The smirk on his face was a permanent fixture, a testament to a life lived without a single shred of doubt. My brother, Alex, a man who mistook his corporate security title for a federal badge, was holding court at the dinner table. Then, a sharp buzz cut through the air, a sound no one at that table had ever heard. It was my secure phone. The room fell silent as I answered, my voice deliberately flat. A crisp, authoritative voice filled the space, devoid of warmth but ringing with power. Agent Fletcher, we're at a go-no-go point on Operation Chimera. The strike team is waiting on your signal. Is the digital trail live or are we dark? Alex's condescending smirk didn't just falter, it shattered. The color drained from his face, leaving behind a slack-jawed mask of pure, unadulterated disbelief. He was looking at me, but he wasn't seeing his sister anymore. 2 hours earlier, the scene had been painfully familiar. We were all gathered for Thanksgiving, the television murmuring in the background about a major domestic terror manhunt. The FBI was struggling, and Alex, of course, had all the answers. He scoffed at the screen, gesturing with his fork. Look at them, running around like headless chickens. Amateurs. They need to stop looking at all that cyber nonsense and just kick down some doors. His eyes then found me, a glint of pity in them that always made my stomach clench. You work in a government basement, Chloe. What do you think? Spend all day alphabetizing files? A familiar coldness settled over me, a practiced calm that had taken me years to perfect. I kept my voice even, offering a small, precise correction. They're not looking for him, they're looking for the ghost network he's using. The digital footprint is all that matters. The reaction was immediate. Alex let out a loud, derisive laugh. It was a sound I knew well, the sound of my thoughts and opinions being publicly discarded. My parents chuckled along, that soft, gentle sound of agreement that always felt like a deeper betrayal than his open mockery. It was the same laughter I heard when I tried to explain my graduate thesis. The same when I talked about the complex coding language I was learning. It was the sound of my own family telling me I was irrelevant. He shook his head, still smiling that insufferable smile. You're no expert, Chloe. Let the cops do their job. To my family, my brother Alex wasn't just the golden child, he was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets caught in his orbit. I remember the dinner party they threw when he was promoted to regional head of asset protection. The champagne was flowing, the laughter was loud, and my brother was recounting a thrilling tale of cornering a shoplifter at the mall. He was hailed as a hero, a real-life action star. In a brief lull, I tried to share my own news, my voice barely cutting through the noise. I told them I'd been selected to lead a new, dark web analysis unit at Quantico. My father, Robert, a man who measured success in handshakes and backslaps, just patted my shoulder with a vacant smile. That's great, sweetie. Just be careful on the computer, he said, his eyes already scanning the room for someone more interesting. Alex, tell us again about that shoplifter you cornered. And just like that, I was invisible again. My groundbreaking career move was reduced to being careful on the computer. They saw me as Chloe the clerk, a quiet girl with a safe, boring desk job. They had no idea about the other life I lived, the other person I became the moment I walked out that door. That other person was Agent Fletcher. My world wasn't a warmly lit dining room, it was a sensitive compartmented information facility, a SCIF. It was a cold, dark room, where the only light came from a wall of monitors displaying encrypted network traffic from the most dangerous corners of the world. There, I wasn't sweetie. I was the expert. I would stand before seasoned field agents, men and women who had seen the worst of humanity, and they would listen to every word I said. I remember briefing Deputy Director Evans on a particularly elusive target. The subject is using a nested VPN through 3 non-extradition countries, I explained, my voice steady and sure. But he made a mistake. He left behind a digital breadcrumb, a kernel panic log from a custom Linux build. That's our entry point. I wasn't asking for permission, I was stating a fact. The agents in the room, grizzled veterans with scars older than me, looked at me with unwavering respect. They didn't see Chloe the clerk. They saw the key that could unlock a case that had stumped them for months. Deputy Director Evans, a man who rarely showed emotion, simply nodded. Make it happen, Fletcher, he said, and in those 4 words I felt more seen and valued than I ever had in my entire life with my own family. My team, my real family, was a silent, focused group that trusted me with their lives. They didn't need to throw me a party, their trust was all the validation I needed. My mother, Carol, a woman who believed peace was more important than fairness, would always try to smooth things over. She'd pull me aside in the kitchen, her voice a hushed whisper as if the truth were a shameful secret. "You know your brother," she'd say, her eyes pleading with me to understand. "His work is so direct, so tangible, he needs the encouragement. Your job is so complex, we just want you to be safe behind a desk." She said complex as if it were a flaw, a puzzle they had no interest in solving. She said safe as if my mind wasn't a battlefield where I fought digital wars every single day. Her words weren't comforting, they were a confirmation of their willful ignorance. A gentle pat on the head to the daughter they would never truly see. They celebrated his minor victories with feasts and fanfare while my silent triumphs, which saved lives and protected national security, were met with polite disinterest. I saw the new watch they bought him for his promotion, and I couldn't help but remember the coding classes I had to pay for myself, the advanced certifications I earned while they were bragging about his latest accomplishment. It was a familiar ache, the quiet tally of 1,000 little dismissals. A constant reminder that in their eyes, I would always be secondary. I was the quiet one, the complicated one, the one who didn't need the spotlight. But the truth was, I had a spotlight of my own. It was just in a world they couldn't even begin to comprehend. I had spent my entire life trying to exist in their world, trying to speak their language of emotion and ego. But I was fluent in a language of data, of facts, of irrefutable proof. And I was tired of being quiet. I realized they only respected one thing: loud, visible authority. They only understood what they could see, what they could boast about to their friends. So I decided it was time to stop hiding mine. The next time my 2 worlds collided, I wouldn't be the one to back down. I would let them see me, really see me, for the first time. After my brother's comment, "You're no expert," something inside me didn't just break, it hardened. The familiar sting of being dismissed was replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't just another family dinner, another casual insult to add to the long ledger of slights. His arrogance wasn't just insulting anymore, it was a genuine liability. My work, my real work, depended on absolute discretion and the careful management of information. Alex's loud, uniformed ignorance was a threat to that. It was a problem that needed a solution. Not with an emotional argument, but with a procedural correction. I decided then and there I would no longer be discreet about my authority. I wouldn't shield them from the truth of my life anymore. The solution was already in motion. I knew Deputy Director Evans was waiting for my final analysis on the manhunt case. The operational window was closing, and he had made it clear he would call my secure line for the final go-ahead the moment my report was filed. No matter the time, no matter the holiday. For years, I would have excused myself, taken the call in a locked room, and preserved their comfortable little narrative. But not tonight. I slipped away to the guest room, opened my encrypted laptop, and finished the analysis that would direct the movements of an entire FBI strike team. I uploaded the file to the secure server and sent a single text to my handler. "Ready?" I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and walked back into the lion's den. I sat down at the dinner table, the low hum of their chatter washing over me, and I waited. I didn't have to set a trap. I just had to stop avoiding the one that was already set. My phone buzzed a moment later with an incoming text. It was from Evans' aide, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I deeply respected. Her message was brief. "Dee Dee Evans has your file. He says it's brilliant. He's briefing the AG and will call you for final authorization on kinetic action within the hour. Are you in a secure location?" I looked up from my screen, scanning the faces of my family. They were laughing at one of Alex's jokes, completely oblivious, wrapped in a blanket of blissful ignorance. They were the source of the deepest insecurity in my life, yet, in that moment, they were utterly harmless. My thumbs moved across the screen, typing my reply. Affirmative. The location is secure. The air in the dining room was thick with the scent of roasted turkey and my brother's boundless arrogance. The television was still on, a silent witness in the corner of the room, flashing images of the ongoing manhunt. Alex, of course, was an expert on this too. He held his wine glass like a scepter, loudly critiquing the FBI's every move to his captive audience. "If I were running this operation, I'd have men on every corner," he declared, his voice booming with unearned confidence. "This isn't complicated. It's basic police work. That's what they're missing." He then turned his gaze to me, a smug, self-satisfied look on his face. He was looking for validation, for his quiet little sister to nod along like she always did. He was expecting Chloe the clerk. He was about to meet Agent Fletcher. That's when it happened. A sharp digital buzz cut through his monologue. It was a sound that didn't belong in that room, a non-commercial encrypted ringtone that was utterly alien. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned towards me. The caller ID on my screen confirmed it was time. I picked up the phone, my movements calm and deliberate. I pressed the speaker button. The silence in the room was absolute, heavy, and waiting. "Fletcher," I said, my voice flat, a tool sharpened by years of professional discipline. A voice of pure iron came through the speaker, a voice that carried the weight of the entire federal government. "Agent Fletcher, we're at a go-no-go point on Operation Chimera. The strike team is waiting on your signal. Is the digital trail live or are we dark?" I held my brother's shocked gaze. His face, just moments before so full of bravado, was now a hollow mask of confusion. The world he knew, the comfortable hierarchy of our family, was crumbling in real time. My voice was devoid of all emotion, a cold stream of pure professional focus. "Director," I began, letting the title hang in the air for a moment. "The suspect's primary network is a decoy. He's active on a ghost server, routed through a compromised satellite uplink." I paused, letting the technical jargon, the language of my real world, settle into the stunned silence. I saw my father's fork freeze halfway to his mouth. My mother's hand flew to her chest, her eyes wide with a fear she couldn't possibly comprehend. I continued, my eyes locked on Alex. "I have his location. It's a warehouse in the industrial district, not the residential area local PD is focused on. The intel is actionable." The room felt like a vacuum, all the air sucked out of it. This was the moment of impact, the culmination of a lifetime of being underestimated. This was the irrefutable proof they could no longer ignore, no longer pat on the head and dismiss. This was my world, my expertise, my authority, and I had brought it to their dinner table. I delivered the final blow, the words clear and precise. "Sir, Operation Chimera is a go. Authorize the strike." The response from Deputy Director Evans was instantaneous, a testament to the trust I had earned in a world they never knew existed. "Acknowledged, Fletcher." "Execute." The line went dead. But the silence that followed was even more profound. It was a silence filled with the wreckage of their perceptions. The clinking of forks had stopped. The casual dinner party chatter was gone. My father was staring at me, his mouth slightly agape, as if seeing a stranger for the first time. My mother looked terrified, as if I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of her perfectly set table. And Alex? He was pale, all the color drained from his face. His bravado was gone, replaced by a raw, naked awe. He looked small. The identity of Chloe the clerk had been publicly executed, right there between the mashed potatoes and the gravy. In her place stood Agent Fletcher, a woman who gave orders that moved FBI strike teams, a woman who spoke a language of call signs and kinetic action. He wasn't seeing his sister anymore. He was seeing a federal agent who was vastly more powerful and competent than he could ever pretend to be. The rest of that Thanksgiving dinner was a wasteland. The air, once filled with my brother's boisterous laughter, was now a heavy, suffocating silence, punctuated only by the scrape of forks against porcelain. No one knew what to say. My mother kept darting nervous glances between me and Alex while my father seemed to have shrunk in his chair, suddenly a guest in his own home. And Alex? He couldn't meet my eye. He spent the rest of the meal staring intently at his plate, the shattered remnants of his smirk lost somewhere in the mashed potatoes. For the first time in my life, I held all the power in the room, and I hadn't even had to raise my voice. I had simply let the truth speak for itself. I excused myself early, the first to leave a family gathering, ever. The quiet hum of my car on the highway was a welcome relief, a clean sound that washed away the suffocating silence I had left behind. In that moment, driving away, I felt a sense of peace that was deeper than any apology could have ever offered. 1 year later, I wasn't in a basement anymore. My world was no longer the cold blue light of a windowless skiff. Instead, I found myself in a corner office at the J. Edgar Hoover Building, a sprawling view of the Washington, D.C. skyline laid out before me. The plaque on my door didn't say, Chloe, the clerk. It read, Unit Chief C. Fletcher, Cyber Terrorism Division. My days were no longer spent fighting for a sliver of recognition at the family table. They were spent leading a team of the brightest minds in the country, a team that had become my real family. We didn't operate on obligation or blood ties. We operated on mutual respect and a shared, relentless pursuit of the truth. We would stand for hours in front of a massive interactive data wall, debating complex data points and challenging each other's theories. Our bond was forged in competence, not dysfunction. This was the life I had built in silence, a legacy earned through merit, not inherited through birthright. I hadn't spoken to my family much in that year. There were a few awkward phone calls, a handful of hesitant texts, but the chasm that had opened up that Thanksgiving was too wide to bridge with small talk. I had found my place, my people, and I no longer felt the need to prove my worth to those who had refused to see it for so long. My peace was no longer dependent on their validation. It was something I had built myself, brick by methodical brick. Then one afternoon, as I was reviewing a particularly dense intelligence file, my personal phone buzzed. It was a number I hadn't seen in months. It was Alex. His text message was not a casual hello. It was a rambling, desperate plea, a monument to his collapsed arrogance. Chloe, Agent Fletcher. I messed up, it began. The feds are here, asking questions I don't understand about network integrity and chain of custody. My company is under a massive federal investigation for a data breach. He was panicking, the words tumbling over each other in a chaotic mess of fear. They mentioned my case is being handled by the Cyber Terrorism Division. Is that you? Can you please help me? I read the message once, then twice. I saw him, not as my brother, but as he was. A terrified man completely out of his depth. The boy who had mockingly told me to let the cops do their job was now begging for help from the highest levels of federal law enforcement, from me. I took a slow sip of my coffee, looking out at the city skyline. There was no anger, no triumphant surge of "I told you so." There was only a quiet, calm resolution. My thumbs moved deliberately across the screen as I typed my response. My professional advice is to secure legal counsel and cooperate fully. I paused, then added one final thought. My sisterly advice is to finally learn the difference between confidence and competence. I hit send. Then, with a few more taps, I forwarded his entire desperate message to the FBI's Internal Affairs Division. My attached note was brief and professional. For your records, please handle by the book. C. Fletcher. I archived the chat on my phone, the digital equivalent of closing a file. The case he was embroiled in was real, and it was indeed under my division's purview. But to me, it was just another file on my desk, another problem to be solved with logic and evidence. His personal crisis was no longer my emotional burden. It was simply my job. My brother thought expertise was about having the loudest voice in the room. I learned that real authority is proven when your name is the one they whisper in a crisis. If you've ever had to prove your skills to people who refuse to see them, share your story below. In this community, your expert opinion is always valued.